welcome back to an absolutely wonderful live studio audience show. So great to have so many people here. Thank you for coming. This is a VE Day special, but we're talking a lot about the future of Britain. It's great to talk about it with people who've got a military history, a military background, got a bit of skin in the game, really, when it comes to Britain's past and future. And a pro-Gaza candidate has won a council seat in Lancashire, despite campaigning in favour of segregation between the two sexes. So some would call that a bit of Sharia, really. In an interview during the local election campaign, 18-year-old Maheen Kamran said that she wanted to encourage public spaces to prevent free mixing between Muslim men and women. So she said, Muslim women aren't really comfortable with being involved with Muslim men. I'm sure that we can have segregated areas, segregated gyms where Muslim women don't have to sacrifice their health. OK, I mean, look, we saw a bit of this at the last general election. We've seen a bit more of it now at the local elections. I imagine we're going to see a lot more of this in the years to come. Is there anybody who would like to make a point on this in the audience? Anyone got a microphone with them? Is that... Yes? Good to see you again.
Yes.
What would your point be on this?
I'm absolutely perplexed and flabbergasted that such a thing can be happening within our democracy in the UK. It can never be allowed here, even though I don't have the authority to say that.
Well, you do. But you're a person like anybody else. You know, you've got the same stake in this country as anybody else, and I think you have a right to feel however you want to feel.
I just think it'll be the beginning of the end for us if we start imposing these kind of laws or Sharia laws or whatever into us. System, our democracy. It's wrong.
You think we need to push back on this now before it becomes an even bigger problem?
Yes, 100%.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Seems to be a common view, I think, from what I can gather. Well, thank you for your point. It's a tremendous point. Yeah, Bob, what do we do about this? Because it's going to get worse, man. It's going to get worse.
I quite agree. A couple of points. Firstly, it's interesting, if you look at countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, especially Saudi Arabia, they are now moving away from conservative interpretations of Islam. And it's now the most sort of virulent, the most jihadi political Islamicist versions of Islam or interpretations of Islam you're now getting in the West, and not so much in the Arab or Islamic world, with the potential exception of Afghanistan. The other thing I'd say, talking about this with my wife, who comes from a Sunni Muslim background, but she was talking about Karl Popper, and we were having a discussion about it, and she was reminding me that Karl Popper said, and he was this great British philosopher, that you have to defend tolerance, and that means at a certain level you have got to start being intolerant of intolerant people, otherwise you will destroy your tolerance and you will destroy your community. And by not being intolerant of bigotry, we are going down a very dark path. I haven't explained it very well.
I get what you meant. I think most people got
You've got to defend tolerance against people who are intolerant, and we have not done enough of that.
But Benjamin, we have an 18-year-old medical student here who was managed to win an award based on, unashamedly, no free mixing amongst the sexes. Is that not really a wake-up call to where we are in modern Britain?
Yeah, I mean, look, what she says isn't going to be implemented. There was only a couple of these candidates that got elected, so let's be grateful for that. But Bob is absolutely right. I've been to every country in the Middle East, and people say, well, as a gay man, isn't that dangerous? And I say, well, the young people I meet in Syria and Saudi Arabia are often far less radical than the people I could come across in Tower Hamlets, and that's no exaggeration. And how did we let that happen? And Bob's also right on the tolerance point, because I think they're using the Gaza-Israel issue as a way in to get these more extreme ideas to be mainstreamed, to persuade some naive people to go along with them so they get over the line in council elections like that. And we should be afraid of that. And as someone on the left, I get criticised for being so pro-Israel. But, they call me the wokest man in Britain. And I say, well, the point of that is that I'm a liberal. I like that people can be different and diverse and be themselves. And you don't get any of that if you let this kind of Islamic extremism get in. And the other thing to say is that there's nothing Islamophobic about that, because if you're a gay guy growing up in a Muslim family, then imagine what a hell of a time you're having. Those Muslim people aren't getting a good life, and we should stand up for tolerance and not let these people take over it.
This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a brand new eSIM service app. What it does is get you a local SIM card that you can use when you're travelling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, so pretty much wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? Well, all you've got to do is hit our link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose the best time frame for you, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. Sailor eSIMs only ever have to be installed once, so when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and just like that, you could be watching the GB News YouTube channel. You can be connected anywhere you go, and you don't have to deal with patchy Wi-Fi in your hotels. So get sorted for your next trip by downloading Sailor using the link in the description below, and if you use our code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us. Carole, your views on what we've seen in the fact that a tiny bit of Lancashire now appears to have been welcoming in the Sharia.
Do you know, we live in a Christian country where men and women are seen as equals, and the rights and equalities women have been hard fought for. And it makes me sick to my stomach that someone is talking about segregating sexes in this country. First of all, it is illegal. It is illegal if it's based on race, religion or ethnicity. And this woman has won her seat based on an illegality. It cannot be done in this country. But the creeping Islamisation of this country is happening in front of our eyes. We must not tolerate it. We cannot tolerate men and women being segregated. And I'd really like to know how this woman thinks she's speaking for all Muslim women in her area. I'm sure she's.
Well, I think there's a few very worrying things for me about this, and it's the fact that it's a ward in Lancashire. This is not a constituency, but it's the fact that she did manage to get the vote. I have concerns about when you introduce serious hardcore religion into the vote, because, you know, if someone here wanted to stand for the Lib Dems or for Reform or for Labour or for the Tories, you'd have to go and knock on someone's door and pitch your manifesto. But for certain people in this country, if you are, you know, quite a devout Muslim, for example, you might just say, well, actually, Allah might not be happy with you if you don't vote for me. Mm. And I think that's a massive, massive concern.
Do we not think
that can have an influence on people.
Do we not think this young girl has been manipulated? I do. I don't believe an 18-year-old girl who has lived the kind of sheltered life that she has led would actually have these independent thoughts and go out and do that.
She might genuinely believe this. I've never met this girl, right? And I would like to. I'd like to have a discussion with her. I'd like to go to that patch and maybe do a show from there. But I think it should be a concern that she managed to win an election and win it fairly.
She actually said that she wants segregated areas like gyms and parks and whatever because women don't want to sacrifice their health. I'd really like to know what she means by that. That just by being in a room with a man, it's bad for a Muslim woman's health. I mean, that's tough.
I also think that quote that we brought there, and we are sorry about this because we could talk about this all night, really, but we're going to have to move on from it shortly. But she did bring a quote here that said this here: Muslim women aren't really comfortable being involved with Muslim men. Well, why not?
Yeah.
What is that?
Funny that.
You know, I don't know. I found that odd. Maybe I'm taking that out of context. I'm not sure. I found that bizarre.
I think it just shows up one other problem as well, that you've got a sort of clan dynamic. Look, this is not common to Islam per se. You've got Saudis in this country, UEA people, Egyptians, they have a very different form of Islam. But this ultra-conservative form of Islam comes from the more backward and rural areas, very often of Pakistan.
Okay.
So this is a cultural dynamic as much as it is as a religious dynamic. And a lot of Muslims would say, actually, this has got absolutely nothing to do with me. And you should, I have been told by Muslim friends, you should absolutely be hammering this in this country because we have it in our country and we hate it and we try to stamp it out for the reasons.
But Bob, we have Sharia courts operating in this country, and who's actually
informally?
Sharia,
we should.
But Sharia courts which actually take away the rights of women.
Right.
Women can be chucked on the street thanks to a Sharia court, and we're doing nothing to stop it.
Yep.
All right. Well, there we go. Well, look, hey, I thought that we would bring that up, especially. I do think there is a relevance here, given it's the 80th commemoration of VE Day. Really, when you do look around that and you think, well, hang on a minute, how have we ended up there? But anyway,